Good afternoon to everyone on the line. Welcome to today's webinar presentation. My name is Maria Nuesi, and I will be your host and moderator. We are very excited to partner with Togetherall to help students build skills and connect to peer-to-peer support when and where they need it. And we're excited for today's presentation to talk more about our collaboration. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. First, today's presentation is being recorded, so don't worry about taking any notes. We will send you a copy of both the recording, the slides, and any resources covered during today's webinar presentation. During the session, attendees are in listen-only mode. However, we have dedicated time at the end for questions, so we highly encourage you to submit questions throughout using the question box on the GoToWebinar interface. Finally, for those of you on Twitter, please connect with us using the handles on your screen. Now I'd like to introduce our presenters. We are joined by Lucas Bierland, who is the Director of Higher Education for Togetherall. We are also joined by Ron Goldman, who is the co-founder and Chief Simulation Strategist for Kognito. And finally, we're joined by Kim Weiland, who is the Product Manager for Kognito. Welcome, and I'd like to hand it over to Ron to get us started.
Sure. Thank you, and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We wanted to talk about this very exciting partnership that we have established with Togetherall, but I want to do it within the context and tell you a little bit of kind of the story behind on why we wanted to do this. So if you can go to the next slide. You know, we all know that there is a lot of change that's happening in mental health and higher ed, and this has been going on for a number of years. And it's driven by the statistics on the number of students who are experiencing distress and about the fact that the old model of very limited services is simply not going to work. And the model or the approach that has been adopted, which is really coming from healthcare, which is looking at personalized care, right? And which is usually referred to as a stepped care approach. And the idea here is when you apply it to mental health is, as I say, to provide to the student, in this case, the access to the help that they need, when they need it, and in the way that they would like to access it, right? So it has to have with a combination of the level of risk that they are, the type of help that they need, and the type of help that they are most comfortable accessing. Right, so the goal here is to do that, and the statistics, and I know the audience on this webinar is familiar with this, but this continues to be, I mean, we have been doing this for over 10 years now, and these statistics keep being, you know, mind-blowing around the number of students who are experiencing help, but also how they experience it, and the issue with capacity, right? So if you look at the last bullet here, for example, peer-to-peer, which is where Kognito has done a lot of work, and Togetherall as well, and you will learn more about it, continues to be the number one thing that students do when they need help. It's almost double than what the number of students actually go to get the school resources. And when you look at the diagram at the bottom, you can see that the idea of this step care approach is to really to tell students there are all of these resources available. And you could start at step one, but you could also, depending on your risk or on your preferences, go to something that's more around the telehealth or therapy immediately. And where Kognito has played a lot is obviously in number two here around skill building, and Kim is going to walk you through more of a presentation. And the combination of that together with the peer support communities, which Togetherall as a great platform, really complement each other, which is why we wanted to join forces. So in the next slide, it pretty much summarizes a lot of what I said right now around the power of this combination between Togetherall and Kognito. We really wanted to bring their peer-to-peer community together with our interactive virtual human training simulations to provide colleges and universities with an even more comprehensive solution to address and to really harness the power of peer support. So we're going to start with Lucas. I'm going to hand you over the baton here to walk us through a demonstration of Togetherall, and then we'll talk about a little bit about what Kognito is doing, and then we'll go into even more specifics on how the two programs are integrated to again provide you as schools around the country with a better support network from all of us. Lucas?
Thanks so much, Ron. Yeah, so after we go through some of these other slides, we will spend more time on the integration piece and how we really work together with Kognito to support students in a broad sense. But I wanted to spend a few minutes focusing really on Togetherall as a platform and what we do, because I know it's new to many of you. So what is Togetherall? It's an anonymous and safe online peer-to-peer health community. And so we'll talk about kind of each of those areas, but what we found as we've developed this platform is that the anonymity and the safety are really fundamental to the student experience on a site like this. And so what really sets us apart from other peer-to-peer models is the anonymity piece. Of course, students are online and aren't able to know who each other are and are able to kind of support and share freely in that capacity, but also the safety piece. And so being monitored 24/7 by mental health practitioners, folks who are licensed to practice and have been trained professionals to work with students like this. It's very fundamental sort of to the program. So in terms of Togetherall itself and why we do what we do, we take what we call a population approach to mental health. So we'll work with large jurisdictions, but primarily with schools, universities, colleges, to really extend what's available on campus in the peer-to-peer sense. And so we're now working with Georgia State, University of South Florida, Loyola Maryland. You see names of many institutions there at the bottom of the screen, but we also work with a number of schools in the United Kingdom, Oxford, Cambridge, you name it. And so what we do is we partner with each institution, make the platform available to all students and all members of that community, and then work to encourage interaction and engagement and support between those various members. And really, in terms of where that comes in, with the peer-to-peer piece, why did we develop something for peers to support others? We know that peers are already spending a lot of time online. Students are spending a lot of time online, engaged in seeking mental health support. And they're doing it in all of the social media sites that you would expect. So Reddit, Facebook, Instagram has over 3 million posts that are related or tagged with mental health specifically. So this is great that folks are going online and seeking support and taking control of their own mental health and well-being. But of course, this is an unmoderated space, and it's obviously not anonymous in most instances. And so students are going online seeking support, but then administrators are getting flagged that students are in crisis on Facebook and sharing that. And then it just becomes a bigger issue sometimes than the original post was meant for. So we wanted to create a space that was really safe and anonymous. We know that students are interested in peer support. Over 60% of campuses now have a student-led, student-run peer support program. So we know students are interested in getting support from other people like them who have similar experience. And we know that obviously, as Ron mentioned, campuses are looking for scalable, affordable ways to extend mental health support beyond the traditional means in a way that will be scalable for years to come. So something that can grow with each institution and with the needs of new cohorts of students who are coming in. I mentioned before about the safety piece, and this is, again, one of the most important pieces about Togetherall is our team of wall guides. And so these are trained professionals licensed to practice within the jurisdiction within which they reside. So these are our clinicians who are on the site in the background and on the site engaging students. And so they have 3 primary roles, we would say, one being safety. So we talked already about the safety piece being very fundamental. What that means in practice is that if a student is in crisis or in immediate need of support, we're able to escalate that student beyond just the resources of the platform. And so a wall guide will connect to the student, they will refer the student or warm transfer the student to an after-hour service like protocol or back to campus, should that be the protocols that we've established with the school. But we'll connect that student with an appropriate resource. Vibrancy is really important. The wall guides are there to make sure that the space is continuing to stay engaged, that students are being drawn out for conversation, and you'll see that as well. And then the navigation to resources. So beyond just that escalation piece, what resources are available on campus that a student might not know about that we could match them with. And so kind of going back to that stepped care approach, being sure that we're directing students to appropriate care, by clinicians, by folks who are licensed to do this. I won't spend a lot of time on this next slide, but did want to cover just a little bit about impact because we get a lot of these questions. So this gives an example of a first-year experience of Togetherall on a campus of 25,000 students. So you'll see about 2,400 students were engaged in the platform in some ways throughout the year. Over 50% of those students shared their own personal experience on the platform at some point. Over half of those students were first-year students. And the other really important key piece to this that we look at all the time is access by students who may only be using Togetherall. So 35% of the students who use the platform said that it was their only source of support that year. So weren't seeking any other means. And we know that 12, 13% of students are engaged in counseling on a campus, but we also know that 65, 70% of students in general say that they've experienced overwhelming feelings of loneliness, vulnerability, isolation. And so really those are the students that we're targeting. So trying to catch other students who might not be caught by other means and then pointed to the resources that would help them. And just over 50% of the students who were polled said that they felt that Togetherall helped them stay enrolled in school, which is a really important factor for us too, of course. We've seen a huge uptick, of course, because of COVID-19 in terms of engagement, as I'm sure many online sites have. Over 250% increase in new members among schools that we're already partnering with. And then, of course, a number of posts that are related to COVID-19. 85% of students indicated when polled that Togetherall helped them cope with the pandemic. Common themes that emerged changed over time. Initially, it was anxiety, worry, and guilt around the pandemic itself. What's going to happen when I return to campus? And then it was the social isolation that you experience with the advent of the pandemic. Finally, the economic impact for students who are trying to stay in school or looking for jobs after school, the concern around that. And so these are all different pieces and different themes that are emerging within the Togetherall space, which we'll jump into next. But this gives you an idea of kind of the conversations that are being engaged in on the platform. So we'll jump over to the platform itself and just show you what it looks like in real time. But the interface is very clean and simple, as you'll see. So we've got three big buckets: community, courses, and resources. I won't spend a lot of time on courses and resources at this point, but you do see that Hi McDuff 2020. That's my username. That's my anonymous username. It was my first dog. No one else would know. But that's the type of anonymity that we go for. So that's all a member can see about another member at this point. Wall guides have much more visibility for safety reasons, of course. But if we want to jump into the community side of things and take a look at a post that may be typical. So if we dive into this one called "I am very depressed," students are asked to title each post when they create it. And this student, of course, titled it with that headline. And I won't spend time reading the full thing, but the student is basically expressing a lot of loneliness. They're back on campus, they're alone in their rooms. This is a student in the Northeast who's just really struggling to connect with others and having trouble reaching out. So they post that, they tag it with depression, general chat, and loneliness, and other students who might be experiencing that are able to filter for that and connect with the student. Right away, a wall guide is going to jump in, welcome that student to the space, use some affirmative language to make them or help them feel heard, and then they'll step back and let the rest of the community care for itself. And so you'll see very commonly, themes of other members and other students sharing about their own feelings of isolation, and then also some suggestions for reaching out. So other resources that are available on campus to the student, encouragement to try counseling, encouragement to try different ways to connect with other students. So I'll wrap it up there. Always happy to kind of share more about the platform itself, but hopefully that gives you a snapshot of what a typical conversation looks like. These go on sometimes for weeks, months, years, but in that case was just a couple of days.
Great, thank you very much. Very, very impressive. So let's quickly talk about Kognito for those of you who are not familiar, and then talk about the integration of both of these programs. Kognito has been around for over 15 years. Really with a very clear mission of looking at how we can harness the power of conversation to improve social, emotional, and physical health, and specifically through conversations. We know how powerful conversations can be, but these are often not easy, whether it's a friend, whether you are their teacher or their doctor, talking to people about these topics, driving the type of behavior change that we want people to have, which are everything from building resiliency to seeking help. Those are not easy conversations, but we know that these are skills that can be taught. These are confidence that can be built. And so we have built over the years simulations that have been used, as Kim will talk more about, in hundreds of schools to really educate everything from faculty to students on how to approach those that they are concerned about and how to help them or connect them with the help that is available. Okay.
Thanks, Ron. So I just want to follow up on that and talk a little bit about our student wellness and campus climates program. You know, we're talking today mostly about mental health and well-being, but as a company, we've really used this platform to build out lots of different programs built on the idea that we are able to help build student skills and really empower them to have these types of conversations and really improve the campus environment. One of the things that we know is that all students are coming to campus with different skill sets already. And so we really view this as upskilling students, really meeting them where they are. We're going to spend some time looking at the conversation and the personalized feedback that you get within that. And that's really going to help move the dial for students and really make them feel more confident because we are giving them really personalized feedback. You want to go to the next one? So not spending too much time on this, many of you know us, some of you do not. We've worked with many schools, as Ron said, over the last 15 years, and why schools continue to turn to us. It's very important for us that it's practice-based. You know, it's not enough to tell people what skills are. It's really important to give them the opportunity to practice those skills and really be able to understand how to use them in the moment. You know, we know this already innately, that we always embed skills more deeply, that it's really dynamic learning. As I said, students are getting that feedback, but it's also dynamic in that they are making those choices and having those reflective moments within the practice scenarios, and that's giving them the opportunity to really think through, oh, my actions caused this, how might I adjust that? And so it's much more engaging, it's much more dynamic, and really importantly, it's research driven. We're using evidence-based skills and strategies that we're teaching students, and we're making sure that not only is it built on evidence-based, but that the research proves that out. So we have a growing body of evidence that really shows that students are much more likely to use the skills taught. They have improved their preparedness and their confidence. Those are the predictors of behavior change. And our follow-up surveys are showing they're much more likely to reach out and approach another student that they might be concerned about. Even more importantly, maybe is that they're more willing to seek help for themselves. We know that students want to do these things, they want to be empowered to do these things, and so being able to show that we have increased their confidence to do them, that's very important to us, and we will continue to look at different areas and different topics and different skills that we can use that practice. We are going to go through a bit of a demo because, you know, I can talk about it until I'm blue in the face, but really being able to see it. So we have pre-recorded this, so it's going to play more like it would as somebody playing through without me talking over it, and then I'll point out a couple of the things in the learning model when it's done.
I haven't seen you much lately. What are you up to?
Yeah, I haven't really been hanging out with anyone, just going on.
Yeah?
Oh yeah, I've got a ton of assignments due, tests to study for, so much.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And everything's piling up. Plus, work has been super busy and my sister has been really sick, so I have to pull extra uncle duty, and I've kind of had some drama with people lately, which isn't helping at all.
So I guess there is more time for me to be able to talk over this as we go, but as you'll see, the students are able to look through options.
Yeah. What's up with you?
And they're going to get feedback. The coach is going to give them feedback on the choices that they make as they go through.
Oh, the usual, nothing much.
How'd it go with that biology guy?
Not good.
What happened? You have to watch out for those biology types, you know.
It's a long story. I'll tell you some other time.
Hey, something the matter? You seem something on your mind?
So you'll notice that all of the feedback is framed in the positive. And the goal here is to really encourage students, even if we're attempting to maybe adjust how they said something for a better response, it's all going to be framed in the positive to really build their confidence in having these conversations. Is that where it stops, Scott? Yeah, sorry, I thought it was the longer clip. So let me just talk a little bit about it. This is a very short clip of the conversation, but really what's going to happen as the student goes through is they're going to be able to practice the skills that they would have learned in the didactic right before this. And they're the types of conversational skills really based on evidence-based MI skills around really being able to use neutral, non-judgmental observations, use open-ended questions, be able to really reflect back to the students so to their peer so they feel heard. And as I mentioned, this is really meant to be an exploratory and a formative, not an assessment for students. They're just going in and seeing how this plays out. And we know from the research and the feedback from students within the surveys that this really does build their confidence, and they are much more likely to have these conversations. And as we know, many of them are already attempting to have these conversations. And so for them, we're really helping improve those as well. What I love, and if you want to go to the next slide, and why I'm excited about this partnership, especially now, is because we know that students want to have these conversations, but they don't always have the platform to do it within if they have not already built those relationships. And we know that in this moment, sometimes students are feeling a higher level of isolation. They might not know who they can have that conversation with if they haven't yet built some of those relationships on campus. And so being able to have this partnership where we are able to, at the end of the program, when students are very engaged, very excited about supporting people, maybe more likely to reach out for help themselves, we are able to actually point them to Togetherall if the campus has that as well, and make that immediately something that they can hook into and begin to seek that support or support others, because we know that there are many who are going to want to do that as well. And the same is true even if they come from a different angle and they might want to be supporting others. And so Lucas, you want to talk a little bit about how it's connected from the Togetherall side as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And those are great points just kind of around the student empowerment piece. And so that's a big part of, I think, our collective mission here in terms of our work together is to create a culture of support, on campuses around mental health. And part of that support is empowering students to seek their own support and then also to provide it to other students. And so through Kognito, they're able to gain all of this understanding around their own approach to working with their peers. And then they're really able to practice it within the space. And then from there, they can be escalated to different resources and organizations, even at the institutional level. And so on the right hand of the screen, you see kind of within the Togetherall site, Part of our resources section is going to list what's available there on campus. It's also going to point them back to Kognito or to Kognito, if the student hasn't already engaged in the simulations there. And so a pretty seamless experience, and also our wall guides are there to guide students appropriately. And so all of that is kind of wrapped up with these parameters that the wall guides have for the safety of the community.
Yeah, and Lucas, as we were having this conversation, one of the things that you had mentioned is that very often the wall guides have students who will say, I want to do more, I want to support more, how do I do that? And so those things can be flagged and really help those students if they want to upskill, if they want to be connected in more ways, back into Kognito as well.
Absolutely. We know there's a lot of research around the therapeutic benefits of helping others. And we know that a lot of students are fearful of doing that work, because they just don't feel confident. And so having the ability to train and practice, and then go in and kind of practice again in an anonymous space where you have wall guides who are assisting you and supporting you, and then being able to do it potentially in person or non-anonymously with other students at some point. So it's all kind of part of that stepped approach, both serving others as well as seeking support yourself.
Great. Maria, we can hand this back to you if there are more, if there are any questions from people we can help address. But I think this is a pretty obvious synergy between two organizations that are dedicated to improving peer support, and obviously making sure that people don't just have both a platform and the skill and the confidence to do that. So we're very excited about this.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Lucas and Kim. Yes, we're now going to move to the Q&A portion of the presentation. So I want to invite our attendees to keep submitting questions. The first question I have is for you, Lucas, is how do you refer students for non-emergency resources?
Yeah, so there are a couple of ways that we do that within the space, and most of the engagement and interaction that we have within the Togetherall community is non-crisis. Given the number of people that we work with, we have 2 million people who have access globally to Togetherall, 200 schools. We have a handful, of course, with that size of a population each day of crisis situations, but most of it is really engaging students with other resources. And so you saw on that last slide, there are tiles that are specific to resources around campus. Our wall guides may point students in that way. They may also direct message with students if there's a situation or a concern that a student has that they want to interact with the wall guide privately with. We can do it that way. We have a broadcast ability to broadcast specific resources that are school specific, so it pops up as an alert when a student signs in. So a number of ways that happens. And then our wall guides are also there just to make sure that folks are feeling supported within the space. So if a student creates a comment and it goes, they create a post and it goes uncommented on after a certain amount of time, the wall guide will go and comment themselves, or they may escalate that post higher within the feed so that it gets more attention. So there's a lot of kind of work being done to be sure that this stays a place where people can find a variety of resources from each other and from their institution.
And Maria, I'd just add to that as well, on the Kognito side, for those of you who have not seen, we just launched a redo of our product. And one of the things that we worked very closely on with universities and students was to show more scenarios of different types of resources available on campus and really broaden the thinking around that. So clearly counseling is still a part of that, but there are also references and scenarios where it is a peer support, or it is a telehealth, or it is something else, to really broaden students' perspective on what resources might be right for them at their level of risk, their level of need at that moment. So really it aligns with being able to get them to think really about all types of options that might be available to them.
Thank you, Kim and Lucas. The next question has come in a couple of different ways, but ultimately attendees want to know what type of resources does Togetherall and Kognito provide administrators or those who are implementing these types of resources on campus and are responsible for also making sure that students and faculty are aware that these resources exist? And Kim, I'll start with you with that question and pass it along.
Yeah, that's a very broad question, so I won't take all the time, but we do provide a lot of support for universities. Really, the idea is that this should be as easy and
Did we lose Kim?
We might have, so I'll defer to you, Ron, while we wait for her to come back.
Yeah, so just I'll try to do, oh, there she is. Continue.
Oh, was I?
You were frozen for a little bit.
Okay, am I back? Sorry, guys. Yeah, I mean, we do so much. We really make this quick and easy and turn around so that for those who are looking to implement quickly, this is scalable. But we also provide support as far as working with universities to think about how this works within their overall communication and programming around mental health. That's one of the things that we've been looking to do with Togetherall and some of the universities that we're working with. You know, how can we combine some of the communication templates that we have and model that out so that students really understand the breadth of what their options are and that we're well integrated in that. So we work really closely. Our CS team is very great at working with universities to think holistically about how this gets rolled out.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the work is in the promotion, and so we have a team that's dedicated to driving that promotion on campus, and so a variety of assets that we use for marketing to students, of course, and that's just a continual project, and so that's something we're always kind of meeting and talking about and strategizing with individual institutions, and then with partners like Kognito in terms of dovetailing that. And the other thing that I think that's very valuable that we provide back to institutions in terms of a resource is really the data and information reporting. And so understanding why students are on the space in the platform. It's of course anonymous, but in aggregate, we can report back the different themes that are emerging among student posts. And different information points about who's engaged in the platform. But also the school can engage their own programming around some of those issues, but also so that we understand which populations we're meeting and which populations we need to do more work with in terms of marketing the platform.
Thank you. The next question is for you, Lucas, which is, it's just if you can restate how our statement of suicide addressed in Togetherall.
Yeah, absolutely. And happy to take meetings, obviously individually, and I can show you actually what our wall guides see in terms of a clinical dashboard, so to speak. But we have an algorithm that runs in the background that would capture trigger words, we call them trigger words. And then a wall guide would go in, get more context around that post itself, and then determine, using obviously their own training, how to escalate that student or how to match that student with appropriate resources. Does that answer the question, Maria?
Yes, and I will let the attendee follow up if there's any additional clarification. I will say that the contact information of our attendees are on the screen, so if you want to follow up, I see a couple of Kognito clients and Togetherall clients wanting more tailored information, so I would encourage you to reach out to Lucas, Ron, and Kim directly for anything specific tailored to your school. But I will then turn it over to the next question, which is, Kim, does Kognito have information that the students can use for themselves, or is it just role play based for peer-to-peer support?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've been talking about peer-to-peer, so I focused on that portion of the program, but that is not the holistic program. The program is both. What does it mean to take care of my own mental and emotional health, seek help for myself, as well as really be able to recognize potential distress here or a friend comfortable for myself, as well as different types of resources that might be on campus to a friend. So there's a whole new section that we added at the end, again, working very closely with universities. I'm going to turn off my webcam so I don't keep losing my voice. And it's really meant to help students understand their own motivations, their own ways that they would support their emotional and mental health, and build out their own plan around potential areas of self-care and other things that they can do. It's really well done. I would love to, if anybody has any questions, it's very holistic. It's not a you should eat better or those types of things.
Perfect. And what we'll do is that we'll include a link to that resource, just because to transition to the next question, to the resource, so everybody can see the pieces of the simulation that address self-care within the new at-risk. The next question, and again, it's coming up frequently, but I'll post it to the audience, to the group, is if I already have access to Kognito and I am interested in learning about Togetherall, what would need to be done to incorporate Togetherall into suicide prevention efforts on that campus, and vice versa? So just because it's a very popular question.
Yeah, I think so. The good news is that the level of integration is up to you as a school. There is no technical integration at this point, right? So it's not that something needs to change on your implementation of Kognito or on your implementation of Togetherall. This is more about adding to the information that currently exists on the other system within the resources that you have. So from an IT perspective, there is nothing that you need to change in your current implementation or one of the other. It's really more about making sure that we, meaning Kognito, Togetherall, and you as a school, is coordinated on the fact that you have both of these resources. It's one of the reasons why we are proactively partnering, right, versus just learning about it from a client that they have both. So we can make sure that those connections that Kim and Lucas talked about are really there, and that students can really leverage those to the use of their own and their peers' mental health.
Right, and you're welcome to contact me directly, or of course your Kognito representative who you're already working with, and we can talk about specific ways and examples that we're working with institutions where they have both programs.
Perfect, thank you. So with that, I want to invite, again, everyone who has specific questions, please reach out to our team and our presenters today. With that, I want to thank you, Lucas, Ron, and Kim, for spending the time to talk through this exciting new partnership. In the follow-up, you will get the recording, the presentation, and we'll put together a list of resources that you can utilize to better learn about the work that each of these organizations are doing to support students on campus. Thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in the next webinar. Take care.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.